Chapter 29. Turning Head Toward the Mountains. The winter of 1977 was the first winter we endured in northern Vietnam. The weather was bitterly cold, especially for us, prisoners who were emaciated, clothed in rags, and sleeping without blankets in cells where the windows were always left wide open for easier surveillance. The constant drizzle and biting winds were things we had only read about in novels describing the suffering of the poor in the North. Now, we lived amidst those conditions, in circumstances worse than poverty, in a living hell on earth. Lou Dinh Veep, a former Chief Justice of the Saigon Court of Appeals, suffered from diabetes. He was assigned to the Green Vegetables work team. One day, he was bitten on the leg by a leech. The wound wouldn't stop bleeding, but he couldn't rest in the camp. Every day, he carried loads of what was called fresh manure to fertilize the vegetables. This so-called fresh manure, or human manure, was a mixture of excrement from the prisoners' latrines and spring water. His wound became infected, and without any medication, he died after a few weeks. He was the first prisoner to die at the Tan Lap re-education camp. Afterward, prisoners began to die one by one. Some collapsed and died while smoking tobacco, still clutching their pipes. Others died during labor, and some passed away in their sleep. At that time, I was in Team 10, the carpentry team. I had to build coffins almost daily, while criminal inmates from the forestry team carried the bodies away for burial. One winter night in December 1977, after we had been locked in our cell and were holding a meeting following dinner, the clinking sound of the cell lock being opened interrupted us. The cadre in charge of Team 10 came in and instructed Yuan, the team leader, to send 5 men with him. It was around 9 o'clock at night. Since it was my turn to be on duty, I went along with 4 other prisoners to the workshop to make a coffin for someone who had died about an hour earlier. This was unusual, as we typically performed this task during working hours. Building a coffin sounds simpler than it actually was. We didn't have pre-cut planks of wood to the right size. We had to saw the wood by hand to the proper dimensions, plane it smooth, and trim the edges so the pieces could fit together. Next, we constructed a rectangular coffin, 2 meters long with sides measuring 50 and 60 centimeters, complete with a lid to nail in place. By midnight, the coffin was finished. We carried it to the infirmary to place the deceased and his belongings inside. Using 2 ropes tied to the ends of the coffin, we slid a bamboo pole through them to carry it on our shoulders. One of us carried a tray with a bowl of rice, a few bananas, some incense sticks, and 2 candles. Another held a torch to light the way in the pitch-black darkness. A third person carried shovels, while the remaining 2 carried the coffin. The supervising officer walked in front, and 2 armed guards followed behind. We trudged up a steep dirt path toward the subcamp's K4 area. The cemetery for deceased prisoners was located atop a hill that had once been a tea plantation, about 10 kilometers from K5. Under the flickering torchlight, the small, scattered earthen graves resembled unfinished furrows. Our friends rested there. At least their bodies and souls were no longer tormented, and their families no longer waited in vain for their return. Though, a prisoner in the camp's interment team had written a song titled Turning Head Towards the Mountains. Someday, when I die, you will no longer have to wait or hope. Someday, when I die, my body will turn head to the mountains, resting in a grave without incense or offerings. Please plant a small, nameless wildflower on my grave. The grave had been pre-dug by the criminal inmates. We placed a coffin beside it, lit incense sticks and candles, and set out the rice, salt, and bananas on the tray. I silently prayed for his peace in the afterlife. We then lowered the coffin into the grave, covered it with earth, and returned to the camp. Dawn was breaking by the time we arrived. We were each given a bowl of rice and some salt as compensation for the task, and were allowed to rest in the camp that day instead of going to work. That was the first time I had buried a fellow prisoner. I don't remember his name, but it wasn't the last time. Soon, we took turns doing this nearly every night. At first, we built coffins when someone died. Later, we made them in advance, waiting for the next death. Prisoners were dying too frequently. Starvation, untreated illnesses, and exhaustion claimed them. Eventually, we ran out of wood to make coffins. Instead, we reused a single coffin for multiple bodies. We wrapped each deceased person and their belongings in a mat, placed them in a coffin for transport, buried them with their mat at the grave, and brought the empty coffin back for the next death. When the first hill was filled, we moved to another hill to establish a new cemetery. The Tan Lap camp was in a valley surrounded by mountains, so no matter which direction deceased were buried, their heads always faced the mountains.